Did Nvidia just say checkmate to AMD? If you don't know, GTC is happening this week. Jensen Huang talked yesterday about, well, everything that Nvidia has been working on and will be working on in the future. To be honest, the presentation, although there were some things that were quite repetitive if you followed CES and even last year's GTC, but all in all, the message was still clear. We are still at the start of this whole new revolution. Nvidia is the clear leader, and to be honest, the leader by quite some margin. The future looks quite bright, especially if you look at everything that they're working on and the partners that they're working with and what they're working on. It's amazing. You cannot watch the event and say, I'm not optimistic about what's going to happen thanks to AI in the future. Now, does that mean that they checkmated AMD and the rest? I don't think so, and I'll explain in this video. I currently own just one share of Nvidia. I own a bunch more of AMD and Intel, so I'll share my thoughts here. And before you write any angry comments, yes, Nvidia will still be the leader, will still be number one. That's not to say that number two cannot make a boatload of money in the upcoming years. So let's discuss a couple of things that were mentioned. Let's talk about how that impacts a company like AMD, and then I want to finish off with a couple of extra things with regards to AMD. So if you enjoy this type of videos, hit all the buttons, subscribe, would really appreciate that. We're trying to reach 90,000 subscribers, so it would really help me out if you push that red button. If you want to support me even further, do check out the link down in the description and in the pinned comment with the top 10 best stocks to buy now, or go to fool.com/couchinvestor. Thank you very much. So AMD at the moment is at $103.73. So yeah, we did see a nice little rebound in the last couple of days. Well, not that nice, just 2.7%. Year to date, stock is still down 14%. It has a market cap of $167.7 billion. Year on year, the stock is still down 42.8%. Quick look at Nvidia, stock is up 1% today after being red during the keynote, which, to be honest, did not really make sense. I mean, whoever was selling their shares during that event probably doesn't know a thing or two about Nvidia. Yes, I also know that today Jerome Powell is expected to speak, so yeah, things might fluctuate by the time you're watching this video. All right, first up, look at this increase. Okay, we go from 1.3 million Hopper GPUs in 2024. We times that by 2.7 to reach 3.6 million Blackwell GPUs so far. That's 2 GPUs per chip for 2025. And that's only for the top 4 US CSPs, which are, of course, AWS, Azure, Google, and Oracle. Jensen said the following: the rise of agentic AI, where AI systems can pursue goals and make decisions on their own, will require easily 100 times more computing power than was believed just last year. And so I want to spend maybe a little bit more time on this slide right here, computing at inflection point. The golden yellow bars, that's Nvidia's data center revenue at the moment. The purple ones are data center capex according to Deloro projections. So they project that by 2028 or even 2029, capex, data center capex worldwide, is expected to be above $1 trillion. Now, what does this show you? Does this show you that we are at the end of the capex cycle, or does this show you that we are going to double it actually in the next 4 years? Yes, we are, well, it's expected to double in the next 4 years, and Nvidia, of course, will take a lot of that $1 trillion in spending. Now, Nvidia taking a lot of that $1 trillion in spending does not mean that AMD is a loser. No, because let's say 5% of $1 trillion is $50 billion. So $50 billion compared to what AMD is generating today, that's not too bad, right? AMD themselves said, they didn't give us a clear number. They said they expect to generate from AI revenue, data center revenue, tens of billions of dollars. Tens of billions of dollars could be $50 billion. Now, I think that for the second half of this year, they're actually going to give us AI revenue guidance. The market, a couple of months ago, were expecting $11 billion, $10 billion or so. Now, some analysts, of course, are more around $8.5 billion in AI revenue, which is around 60+% increase year over year from the just over $5 billion that they generated in 2024. Now, I'd be surprised if we do not reach at least $8 billion, I'd be very happy with $10 billion, and I'd be even more happy if they can exceed $10 billion, which means more than double year on year. I think a doubling could be feasible, especially since they pulled forward the MI350. Of course, the big game changer is still going to be MI400, but that's only for 2026. But again, yes, Nvidia is still going to be the number one. They're going to have most of the market, and that's fine. Because the second player can still take, I just talked about 5%. 5% of $1 trillion, that's $50 billion. So to reach $100 billion, you basically take 10%. Is it feasible, 10%? It's feasible. I'd rather stick with the 5, and then if there is more upside, that's great as well. Now, Nvidia continued here and showed us what's next. So we're basically here, Blackwell, and then there's going to be Blackwell Ultra. By the way, HBM3E, HBM4, HBM4E, and then for Feynman, Richard Feynman, which is also born on May 11th, just like me, because we think alike, of course. Anyways, HBM, of course, SK Hynix, Micron, huge players here. And this just goes to show that, and I'll show you the numbers in just a second, just goes to show that Micron, SK Hynix memory players are going to be of extreme importance in this AI revolution. So next year, of course, we know we're going with Rubin, and then there's going to be Rubin Ultra. Vera is the CPU here. We go from Grace to Vera. And then after that, they already announced the next one, which is Feynman. That's going to be with next-gen HBM. Now, of course, it's no surprise that they announced already one after Rubin. We had the same thing last year where they suddenly announced Rubin. So not surprised, right? Not surprised. What was quite crazy, if we look at Rubin Ultra with NVLink 576, that's for the second half of 2027, looking at the performance, 14 times that of a GB300 NVLink 72. That's insane. And look at this, the HBM4E memory, 4.6 petabytes per second, 365 terabytes of fast memory. These things just become more and more complex. I think they mentioned, I don't know if it's for Rubin or maybe even just for Blackwell already, the amount of parts that you have in one of those racks here is above 2 million. So of course, if one of these parts are delayed or there's an issue, of course, it's going to delay the whole thing, which, yeah, it's extremely complex. And the fact that these things exist, over 2 million parts just to have one of those things, it's incredible. It's incredible. Then continue to talk about, intelligence going up as we go further through the physical AI route. So we have perception AI, generative AI, agentic AI, which is basically what the focus is going to be here in now 2025. And then the big one is physical AI. We've talked a little bit about physical AI during the live stream. So physical AI, think about robotics, manufacturing, and all of that. Cosmos, the platform that they introduced already in CS, basically talks about that. Then they announced Dynamo. So Dynamo is a distributed inference serving library, which is essentially the operating system of an AI factory. Dynamo can aid Blackwell and Hopper with a giant leap in inferencing performance. Now, he also said something very interesting, that now that there is Blackwell, there's really no reason why you should be buying a Hopper GPU, which was quite a funny moment. But then again, lots of smaller startups, smaller companies cannot afford Blackwell, so they'll go with Hopper, and I think that's good enough. And that's not just for Nvidia, that's with many other players out there as well. But yeah, when you look at this, of course, it was very, very technical. A lot of these things I don't understand myself, so I had to go and ask Grok or Gemini to explain it in simple terms. But you cannot watch all of this. This is already a little preview. You cannot watch all of this and say, it's over, right? Nvidia is over. You shouldn't be bullish on Nvidia or AI or anything like that. No, I think every time there is such a big event, you just become more and more bullish, in my opinion. Now, going back to AMD, there was a small event in Japan. So they said the following: AMD manager reports 45% GPU retail market share in Japan, and they're eyeing 70% as the next target. Mr. Sato, there's always a Mr. Sato there. He said, AMD isn't used to selling so many graphics cards. This was later followed up by an important statistic. Mr. Sato reporting a 45% retail market share for Radeon GPU. So yeah, this is Radeon GPU, not the data center ones, of course. We are the opposition party, so let's aim for 70%. Now, I know some of the comments will already say, yeah, of course, you are sold out. These are all great headlines, but yeah, if you only sell 10 GPUs, then you're going to sell out quite quickly. Which, yeah, to be honest, I mean, they're all sold out and you cannot really get them at MSRP prices anymore, which is a shame. So hopefully they'll restock them pretty soon so you don't have to pay scalper prices. If we go and look at Amazon US, if you look at the best sellers in computer CPU processors, what can you see here? Well, if you cannot see, then I'll just tell you. Top 15, all of them are AMD Ryzen ones, so pretty good. Now, before ending, look, AMD is not an Nvidia, and that's fine. AMD is not an Nvidia, and that's fine. You can make money with a non-Nvidia player as well. AMD is still expected to grow quite nicely revenue-wise. I still think that these numbers are, in my opinion, going to be very, very wrong. But okay, 2025 revenue growth 23.4%, followed by another 20% growth in fiscal 26, and then 14.8% growth in fiscal 2027. I think with the MI400, I think we're going to see this number be a bit more than that. But okay, let's stick with that. The big story here is, of course, on the profitability side. Net income, operating income, and especially free cash flow is about to explode. We're basically going to go from $2.4 billion in fiscal 24 to 6.7 in fiscal 25, 7.9 in fiscal 26, which is another 16.9% year-over-year growth, over 181% year-over-year growth. And then in fiscal 27, 43% year-over-year growth to reach $11.32 billion in free cash flow. That's quite something. That's quite something because with that, you can tackle dilution, which means you can buy back more shares, you can invest even more and be even more competitive. So this is the story to follow. Right now, of course, the big contributor to all of that is definitely data center revenue becoming a bigger and bigger chunk of the overall revenue. And look at this, only last quarter, data center revenue, $3.85 billion. That's it, $3.85 billion. So for AMD to become much, much bigger, it's not that difficult to think that they could 10x something like this, right? For an overall number per year. To go from $3.8 billion to 10x that, or maybe let's be conservative, only 5x that, is that so crazy to think? I don't think so. Plus, you have all the other segments here. Client revenue doing quite well and growing. And then we've had, of course, headwinds from embedded and gaming. Now, right now, these are small segments. But look at this. There is $1 billion plus revenue to be gained here in the next couple of quarters or years. So, yeah, I think the market is still underestimating AMD, while I also think that AMD is not the next Nvidia. And Nvidia is the next Nvidia, AMD is the next AMD, and that's about it, and that's fine. Now, the reason why I went with AMD is just because of the disconnect and the higher potential, a lot of upside at $167 billion in market cap. Yes, maybe one day it could reach $1 trillion, but let's stick with just $500 billion. I could still see over 2x from here. Nvidia, could they 2x? Could they be a $6-7 trillion company? Yeah, could be. But I think it's much easier to go from 167 to $500 billion than to go from $2.9 trillion to $6 or $7 trillion. But then again, could be wrong, and that's fine. That's fine. Two incredible companies. So going back to the question, did Nvidia say checkmate to AMD? I don't think so. And that's fine as well. So all in all, that's about it. If you enjoyed this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.